Hey everyone, welcome back to Alert Alert, the podcast about Netflix, The Circle, over here on Silent Podcast, where we are anything but silent. My name is Kari. I am joined by my co-host Josiane. Josiane, how is the beginning of your week going?
It is going swell. Thank you for asking. A little bit of a long day at work, I'm not gonna lie. But honestly, I feel like I got the cure to the antivirus that is work. And I'm ready to discuss all things the circle. So I'm so excited to be there, to be here, obviously. How are you doing?
I'm good. I am very excited because I am like very much on my way to being caught up on all of my podcasting duties. So
Ooh.
I have two episodes of that challenge to watch, a podcast with Katie tonight, a podcast tomorrow about the challenge, and then like up to date and going to be on a schedule. And I like when my life operates on a schedule. I'm a schedule kind of girl. I want plans. I want to be able to revolve my life around said plans. Like I'm ready to get back into it.
No, let's honestly, if you're ready to get into it, we might as well jump in, right?
Aye, aye, Captain. Let's do this. So we left off with the influencers, Alyssa and Yuling, in the influencer hangout, and they had to decide who to block. But then we got a little bit of a remix, and Yuling, because she is the top ranked influencer, has to go and block this person to their face, which like is difficult. Um, and so, sorry, Yuling, that you had to do that. So, we start episode 7 with Yuling walking through the hallway dramatically, like they always do in the circle. No one walks not dramatically, everyone has a strut. And we see Yuling open the door to Chrissa's apartment, unfortunately. Our girl Chrissa got blocked.
Womp
Upon
womp
her walking in,
womp.
how did you feel about this decision?
I am so frustrated. Krista was a favorite of mine, as y'all know, if y'all been following. So to see Yuling open that door and to see Krista just smack her pillow down in like sadness, I was like, girl, you and me both. I think it was such a bad move for Yuling's game. I feel like Krista doesn't have that many allies, but she's very likable. So she could have definitely benefited from Krissa. And I don't understand why she let Alyssa dictate her move. I mean, power to Alyssa. Give credit where credit is due, I guess. But yeah, it was just a really sad moment, especially since we had such a good chat with Mark, not Mark, my goodness, Frank and Krissa and Yuling. So it was just so sad to see and heartbreaking to see Krissa so upset. You know, the awkwardness in the room, Yuling walking in and feeling bad. I think she realized when she walked in that that was a huge mistake. What do you think?
Yeah, I when I saw that she went into Chris's, I was just mad for two reasons. One, Krista was my early favorite, not necessarily
Hmm.
to win, just like I thought she was funny.
Yeah.
That like that jock ditziness kind of like was entertaining when we saw it, and um, she was always positive. I enjoyed having her on my screen, um, but two more so because I thought that that was such a dumb decision for Ewing's game. Like
Yeah.
to me, that was a huge mistake for Ewing to allow this decision to be made, and I was just frustrated because like as much as I like Krissa, even more so I want to see good gameplay, and I just felt that I guess in Alyssa's defense, like that is good gameplay for her
Yeah.
because it does make Ewing have to depend on her relationship with Alyssa a little bit more. And
Hmm.
I don't even know if Alyssa knew that Krissa, Frank, and Ewing had something going on, but it was a good decision for Alyssa. But the fact that Ewing allowed that decision to happen, where I feel like getting rid of Carol could have been more of a beneficially like mutually beneficial decision for both of them in the fact that like it was an easy vote off, and like we talked
Yeah.
about last week that if you let someone like Carol who Everyone knows it's a catfish. Um, really isn't playing too strong of a game, get to the final. People use Carol as their voting pawn, and then Carol
Yeah.
just like shoots up to number one or two. Like Carol ends up as a secret influencer before the final five, or Carol's in the final five and shoots up the final rankings. Like you need to bring people along that are your equals, that you can't really have goats. Goats end up messing things up here. So I just got so frustrated so quickly because that's not what I wanted to see happen, especially for Krissa and Yuling in this.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about, getting rid of someone you think is your biggest competition, but at the same time it's like there's also benefit into keeping that person you think is your like biggest competition. I feel like it would have been wiser long term for Alyssa to make good with Krissa and open that door. And I think that's what was kind of annoying. It just felt like she didn't even want to entertain the idea of like making a connection with Krissa. She immediately was like, I got my eyes set on her and that's the way I'm going. Now, you the reasoning behind that, a lot of people can argue different things. I have my theories, but yeah, I don't know. I think that was a waste. I think Carol is um no shade a goat, like just like gonna be able to carry. And also what happens is that Carol then becomes more powerful because her rankings will probably be more influential in regards to where other people rank overall than her herself. Because if people keeping her and thinking that she doesn't have good ratings, at the end they're just gonna put her number one, like we've explained. So yeah, I don't know. It was a questionable choice, but I for Alyssa's game, even though I think there was a better strategy to go about it, I think that she won this round and she deserves some credit for sure.
I don't know if this is like a hot take or whatever, but I'm gonna
Hmm.
say it. Of Krissa and Carol, I actually think Carol is at least attempting to play a better game. I think Krissa is more likable in terms of just personality, first impressions, talking or whatever. But I think Carol is trying harder to reach out to more people and really like make the connections where it felt like Krissa took more of a backseat on things. Like she had her instant connection with Frank and she knew that that was going to be fine, but even when Nathan messaged her, her response was, "Oh, like what am I going to talk to a 22-year-old about? It doesn't matter. You got to talk to him about something because that's one of the people rating you. Like you have to. You can't just sit there and be like, why would I want to talk to this kid? You have to talk to this kid." Um, and so that I think to me is just another reason why to get rid of Carol because Carol is like genuinely trying out here, and it felt like was not. Krissa to me felt like she was more going off of like vibes,
Vibes.
and um, Carol's out here strategizing a bit more. So
Hmm.
I felt I don't know. I overall I think this is a good decision for Alyssa. Not a great decision, just a good decision. And I think it's a bad decision for Yuling. And I'm gonna just miss Chris's vibes, I guess, in the circle.
Her vibes, yes. Keyword. Take a shot every time we say vibes.
I'm not even a big like vibes word user, so I just had no better way of describing
There's
how Krissa operates than that.
I don't know. There's just something about the word vibes, especially in the circle. I feel like I wish someone would go through all the episodes we've had so far and have a word counter for how many times people have said vibes. Because people are just like, this person has such good vibes. I'm gonna message this person because of their vibes. Their vibes are off. It's just a lot of
Mhm.
vibes. It's giving the equivalent of like the word
Mhm.
like, oh my god. It's giving very that. So take that with what we will. But yeah, it was a shame. What did you think of Yuling and Chris's conversation after the fact that like Yuling like explained to her a little bit like her reasoning and stuff?
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of got you annoyed with Yuling in this conversation and like how Yuling operated um almost for the next like episode or two every time they like she brought up, oh, like this is revenge for Krissa and I should have trusted my gut and blah blah blah, and it's like then why didn't you? I feel like this almost like a fake crusade type of thing. So the conversation, especially the way that she approached it, in terms of like she's so frustrated with the result. You caused the result. You were 50% of the result. So to sit there and like displace this anger, really, I felt needed to be like more ownership and just even still, like I think before Yuling went to bed that night, or maybe it was when she woke up the next morning. I know it was like one of those two. Like, I'm playing this for Krissa, blah blah. It's like you killed Krissa. You were the one who put her to rest. Like, and
You're the reason
then,
why.
and then you're out here like trying to like you're a martyr or something. No, stop it right now. So I actually got pretty annoyed at this.
I'm so interested to understand Yuling's thought process because actually, first of all, I want to go back and look at the circle rule book. You know that like that meme of people looking at like the rule books from Big Brother like in the pantry. That's how I feel about the game because I'm so curious how it works if both influencers don't want to budge. Because honestly, I think Yuling just like didn't want to fight it out and stick her neck out for Krista. I don't know if that was her reasoning, and I'm not gonna play devil's advocate, but I just don't understand because let's say hypothetically, Alyssa was like, "There's no way Mama Carol's going," and then Yuling said, "Well, Chris is not going." What happens after that? I would
They go
like
to
to
rough.
see that.
They have to
They
build
go
a
to Rice.
fire.
Literally Survivor. Yeah, like no, it's just I
The
don't
Spice
know.
Girls come back in and take their spot. They play as either
That's
Yuling or Alyssa.
so funny.
Actually, the Spice Girls split up,
They
and
split up. They're two different people.
you both get the boot, and now it's Mel B and Emma each playing you. So sorry, you should have came
Spice
to
up
a
your
decision.
life.
Yeah.
Come through. Yeah, I don't know. I just that conversation was really upsetting in the sense that like I was glad that like Krista and Yulane didn't get off bad terms. I was gonna say
Mhm.
the word vibes. My God, I had to like think. Um, yeah, and so I was glad that they left on good ways. I don't know.
On good terms.
Sorry. Good terms. Sorry. Y'all need to remember French is my first language. Okay. So I was very happy about that. But it was really frustrating that she was like, I didn't want, I wanted, didn't Yuling said that she say that she wanted to get rid of, what was it? Who was it? Was it Brew or someone? It was like someone else, someone who wasn't even in trouble. And I was like, what are you
Yeah,
talking about, girl?
yeah.
Girl,
It was
what?
Brew.
He was the first person safe. What do you mean? Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
I just feel like the way they went about it, if Yuling really had a mission or a goal to set out, I feel like she should have taken the driver's seat and she literally did not. I'm like, I just didn't understand the reasoning, but I did like the fact that they still talked game. And so, having that conversation about who should go next, what we think, what people are catfish are. But I'm like, honestly, I think Carissa really served as the person to take Yuling's perspective and kind of shift it to where it needs to be. Because
Mhm.
at this point, I think she's thinking it's rainbows and sunshines and blah blah blah, and that's why I think the blocking went the way it did. And I think seeing Carissa leave was like unfortunate, but like I think that was the instrument into making Yuling play a different type of game and a game that I appreciate more because it feels more strategic than
Mhm.
it did prior to that. It's just there's a lack of accountability and responsibility in um her hand in letting Carissa go because you're the number one influencer in addition to the fact that you're literally one of the influencers who decides who goes home. I don't know. It don't make no sense up in here to me, but you
It
know,
also like kind of exposed Krissa a bit to me in terms of, yeah, you were playing the game. You were playing a game. I don't know if you were playing the game. Like, I don't know if you were playing the circle when Krista said that Carol's the strongest player because they have the most cards, and it's like, I'm not
um,
sure. I 100% agree with that, Krissa, because I think that I do think that Carol's getting away with just everybody knowing that she's a catfish, and no one, I mean, there's been a couple of jabs here and there, but there hasn't been like a full on Carol is a catfish to her face conversation. That it's like people are owning it from their name, not anonymous, like in the circle chat. Alyssa came the closest by like implying the cake thing, but I think everybody just kind of knows. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't say that Carol's playing the best game by a landslide. I actually think that Alyssa is trying to play the best game, where Frank might be playing the best game just because he's
Not
like,
playing the game.
yeah, because he's like chill as fuck and people like him. But I think like Alyssa's arguably playing the best.
I think to be fair, perception is reality, so I can't knock Krista for having that theory. However, I do agree with her in the fact that Carol opens and has these group chats with all these women and are
Mm-hmm.
leading the charge. That's one of the things that Krista gets to see. You know what I mean? She
Yeah.
doesn't get to see Carol's one-on-one conversations or everyone else's one-on-one conversations. So you have that group chat and you've checked in twice now with some of these ladies. Obviously you're going to have relationships outside of that group chat in addition to, so to assume it's like, oh, at least everyone feels better about Carol than they do another person who's not in this big chat with all the women, for example, like a Frank or a Brew,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not in this big conversation with X amount of people. And I think Carol has opened the door the most to being like, oh, I'm the mom, come here, I'm gonna give you a sweet treat. And
Sweet.
like, I don't know, just giving very like it just giving very low key kind of like grandmother. Like, you know how your grandmother, well, this is like a black thing, but like for black people it's like this thing where there's like a jar that's like meant to be cookies, but there's a bunch of stuff in it. Like
Mm-hmm.
giving very that, like very
Oh,
mother, like
my
I'm
very white Scottish grandmother had the same thing.
okay,
It
okay, you know what I'm
cookies on it,
talking about.
and then
But like
you'd
the
reach
cookie
in and there'd be
box.
like an oyster crackers bag in there, like
Like
just
some like
random shit.
just random things that shouldn't be in a cookies box. That's how I feel about Carol's game. And so, but to be honest, like we have a different perception of the game because we see everything.
Yeah.
We're omniscient or whatever you want to use the term, because we see everything to a degree. Really, the producers see everything, but you get what I'm saying. All that to say is that like Carissa sees what she has access to, which is the fact that Carol has been voted one of the trusted people.
Mm-hmm.
Carol's been voted this, and then she's in the big group chat with all the women, and like a lot of their issues gets like addressed and like cleared immediately, which is not the same for a lot of other people. So I can see why she thought that. We both know that that assessment is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't see where she was coming from with that idea.
Yeah, I think that I don't know how great it would have been to have Krissa in the end of game gameplay, to be honest. I don't know if she brings like what other players can in terms of strategy. I
Hmm.
think Frank is a decent mix of, I don't even think he has strategy, but like his emotional intelligence is high enough
Yeah.
to um almost give him an innate sense of strategy to what he's doing versus like I don't think Krissa really has that.
Mhm.
And so while I'm sad to see Krissa go here, I do think for if I were to take a step back and look at this from the perspective of, okay, who do I want to see continue playing this game and not just being a part of this game? I do think that as annoying as the mama bear stuff is, like Carol is going to try harder than Krissa does. And that's going to bring more just excitement to the overall strategy game, all of it.
Hold on, I'm gonna show a comment from Valencia, our queen, our icon. Hi.
Hi, Valencia.
We see you. We appreciate you coming and watching live with us, and with other people who are also watching live. I know Valencia's not the only one, so I'm very excited.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but let's talk about the morning after, because no one
Yes.
actually knows who actually left.
Right.
And so everyone's thinking it's a great day to be in the circle. I'm feeling great. We see Frank feeling refreshed, you know, happy that it's not him. Little does he know it's actually one of his number one allies. Like,
Hmm.
isn't that crazy? Ugh, ridiculous.
Yeah, so when we get the alert that the news feed has been updated, the rest of the players see that Chris has been blocked. And of course, Krista says in her video, some of you just don't have genuine vibes.
Just vibes. It's giving Gwyneth Paltrow, just like that energy. I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but like gooped,
Yes.
like scented, plus, what's the word that, vulva?
Oh.
Scented vulva? Like Alyssa loves to let us know. It's gonna vary that. Actually, honestly, this whole cast is kind of giving Gwyneth Paltrow a vulva pillow, just straight off vibes, meditation in the morning. I don't
Mhm.
know. Maybe Gwyneth is an executive producer. That's my latest theory on the circle. You're welcome.
once once they see the video, the circle chat opens and Alyssa and Ewing explain that they made this decision together and it was based off of the connections they have. Nathan gets a little chippy, not so much in the circle chat, but more so like, why didn't they go for Carol? Carol should be gone. To which my question is like, why does Nathan want another catfish gone? I feel like he should want to keep Carol close, but
Because Nathan has no relationship with Carol, and it would make no sense for him to have a relationship with Carol as Nate slash Alex. Do you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like a 22-year-old frat boy just going to a mother doesn't seem character like. Not to say that frat boys don't love their mothers. Don't forget, I'll say it every episode that Nate is still here. Sorority, fraternity, solidarity. Yes, I am in a sorority, so don't take it personally when I say this. But like, it just doesn't make sense for who he's supposed to be allies with a Carol. Like, unless Carol went off and was more strategic, but that would be also very revealing that Carol isn't actually Carol, which wouldn't, again, like Nate also is not supposed to be a catfish either. Like
Hmm.
you like there's so much, like it's so meta to think about it, because you have to think about the surface level of the fact that like, if both people were not a catfish, Nathan and Mama Carol probably wouldn't be allies. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, Nate's playing a straight out frat boy who, like, just very much that archetype, that caricature is the right word I want to use. So it just wouldn't make sense. But then if you peel back that layer and think about the fact that they're both catfishes, that means that they have to reveal to each other that they're catfishes, or there is an understanding.
Hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to bode well for either or parties. So, like, I think Nathan would have a also, Nathan just built a relationship with Krissa. So, like, I understand why he would rather Mama Carol go over Krissa in comparison to Brew, who's his bro,
Hmm.
to Lissa, who's a potential flirt, to Yulang, who he's been flirting with, to Frank, where they've had that bro chat his first day. Like, Carol was at the bottom of his list, so I can see why. Also, I don't think it was that obvious to Alex slash Nathan that Carol was a catfish, because I feel like it's obvious for people who have been in the game longer. And I also don't think that they were a part of the cake exercise to begin with.
Right.
So they wouldn't have the ammunition to want to keep Carol as a catfish, because it wouldn't be as apparent to Rachel and Nathan that Carol is a catfish.
Well, I think Nathan even said like, I everyone knows she's a catfish, like why is she still here type of thing, which is what caused me to write that question because I think
Mm,
that Alex
okay.
is smart enough to know that okay, catfish are low hanging fruit in this game. If it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to two people, if it comes down to him being saved versus Carol being saved in an influencer hangout by a super influencer, whatever the situation might be, right? That okay, if people do resort to that like old trope of I'm going to get a catfish or like I think this person is a catfish, I would want at least one catfish shield ahead of me that's more catfishy than me if I am a catfish. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying, and you do bring up a valuable point, but also at the same time, I think Alex is not thinking that that to me seems very worst case scenario. And I do see Alex, I wouldn't say like his teacher strategic AF, but I do
Mhm.
see him as someone who is analytical and tries to be logical. And so at the end of the day, if he is trying to push the bigger catfish in front of him, he is not doing his job in the first place to be pretending that he's not a catfish, to
Mhm.
be embodying who he is. So I don't think in his mindset he's thinking, oh, worst case scenario, if I who's the bigger catfish, I need Carol to stay here. But also at this end, like also in addition to that, you have to think if Carol's here, is she really gonna benefit Nathan's game?
Mhm.
Carol would probably rank Nathan one of the last people because of the lack of connection. Because Carol's been advocating for women,
Yep.
and so Rachel would have a better chance than Nathan in the overall rankings for Mama Carol. In addition to the fact that Frank has been in there from the like an OG, he was there from the beginning, and so there is still more of a connection there than Nathan. And then to add to the last guy, Brew is literally Mama Carol's adoptive son.
Mhm.
And they're like, Bruce been putting Carol number one. So it just logically wouldn't make sense for Nathan to keep Carol in the first place. Whereas, like, I could have seen Krissa staying and ranking Nathan like third.
Mhm.
So, yeah, but I get what you're saying though, for sure. I just think there's a lack of if there was a more of a connection between the two, I think that point would be more like more relevant because then it's like we have a relationship. Carol would rank him higher and he could push her under the bus if need be unexpectedly. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. No, I understand. I just was like kind of confused by his strong takes on what happened. That's all.
There's a very interesting takes. Cards close to their chest.
Mhm.
Nathan's overall takes on anything and everything. Hi Mel B, hi Emma, hi Jared. Like there's just been interesting takes, but again, perception is reality, and when you're only texting people, ooh, that
Mhm.
perception's not that solid.
Well, after the circle chat closes, we get Frank chatting with Yuling, and I thought that Frank did something very smart here by reaching out to Yuling.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this chat, Yuling tells Frank that Carol told both her and Alyssa that that Carol saved them in that first blocking. Well, if that's the case, that means he's making it, or Carol is making it seem like Frank did not want to have Alyssa or Ewing's back. That it was Carol who did it. And Frank was straight up saying it was between Ewing and Paul,
Mm-hmm.
and they decided on Paul. So like Frank didn't lie, but he said like no, I was pushing to keep you as well. Um, so both of them agree that they're out on Carol. So then they're talking, and Frank is like, I really get good vibes from Rachel. What do you think of adding Rachel to this chat? So they do, and the three of them form the inner trust circle. Is that what it's called? Their
The inner
hashtag,
circle.
the inner circle. Okay, I thought
Yes,
the word trust was
ma'am.
in there. So now we have,
No, I think that's in another season, which is low key triggering. I think that was like last season. Anyways.
yeah, I feel like it was a hashtag in another season for an alliance. So, oh my god, my
There's
dog
so
just
many
did
alliance
something
names you
so
can make
cute.
with the
Sorry.
circle.
Yeah, seriously.
Literally.
Um, so that's where we're at with Yuling, Rachel, and Frank. We have a newly formed three-person alliance. What do you think of this alliance here?
I don't know if y'all have seen my tweets, if you've just gone through the circle hashtag, or if you follow me personally, but I was elated, ecstatic. I was jumping. I was having the time of my life. I had a drink in my hand. I was cheering to the alliance. I felt like I was one of them. I think Frank really carried that that literal particular scene. I like Frank's gameplay is a little bit like interesting because it's not really gameplay. It's based off like who he like fucks with, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like who he just
One might
likes.
even say vibes.
one may even say vibes. And that's what's so crazy because it's actually in like his intuition
Mm-hmm.
with the vibes it just makes sense for his game. Oh, the dogs are the dogs are barking. The dogs are dogging. But yes, I think Frank did such a good job with what he decided to do in terms of um first of all, having that conversation about Krissa and Yuling about what exactly happened. And Frank had every right to be like, oh, like we just had a conversation. How could you do that to us? Like, that's crazy. But a big thing that you need to do in this game is forgive, but not forget, but just adapt to it rather and use it to your benefit. So I think Frank did such a good job with that. Um, and then curating the conversation about turning it kind of on Carol and saying how and just being honest. And while sometimes honesty is not the best policy in games, social games, even though honesty is the best thing to do in real life, y'all, please be honest. Um, in the context of the game, it's not always necessarily the best thing. And so to have Frank just be honest about how it went down and just kind of turn it on Carol, I can't believe Carol really made it seem like it was all her. In addition to the fact that Alyssa and Yuling had a conversation about the fact that Carol was like, I'm I wanted to save you, which got a reaction from them last time. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that really just sold the target for who Yuling's next target will be, which is Mama Carol. And Frank really like again, Carissa kind of turned her head, and I think Frank kind of sent her on her way. She said, "Here you go. Here's the last thing you needed. Now go after Carol." And I think that was so well done on his part. And I don't know how intentional it is because we don't really see thoughts or strategy necessarily come out of Frank, but rather his personality shine, which to his credit, he could be very strategic and he's just not being edited that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so well done. And then to kind of find another group within with you Ling still because Yuling just got voted number one. She's
Mm-hmm.
one of the most trusted people. Yuling's still a good person to have on your side. And so to be like, Yuling, I still like your vibes, quote unquote. Let's add someone who I like as well, whose vibes just get along, and it's Rachel. And making that alliance was such a smart move. And we see that it has such a big consequence in
Mm-hmm.
the eighth episode. I just have to give credit where credit is due. I need to tip my hat. And Frank did that. He did like it felt like a 5-step program that he himself created and was giving us a TED talk on and giving us the social experiment to show us how it's done. I am enthusiast. Like, oh, it's the joy I wanted, especially since I can't stand the thruple. No
Mm-hmm.
offense. I just that's not an alliance I can get behind as
Mm-hmm.
a viewer. Like I can sit here and give them credit where credit is due, but as a viewer, I'm not into it. I'm not here for it. So yes, I'm all here for this alliance. All three people at this point are people I've been rooting for. So yes, 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 and yes. Um, I don't know how happy you are in comparison to me, but how did you feel?
I don't think I could be as happy about anything as you are about this, to be honest. Um,
Sorry, I'm a little passionate.
no, I wrote down while I was watching this that the smartest thing that's happened in this game, whether or not it was intentional, up until this point, is Frank not putting any sort of negativity or blame towards Yuling in that conversation. To reach out and then have the conversation. Like Chris's name barely came up in the conversation. It could have been very easy for Frank to be like, yo, what the fuck, you know? And so for him to not only give he like consoled Yuling a bit. He strategized with Yuling, gave her very direct and sincere honesty about his time as an influencer and the decisions that came from that. And then to create a new alliance of three, all within one chat, just moving forward with no anger, no animosity towards Yuling at all, I think is the smartest thing that's happened so far in this game. And so Um, I'm definitely interested in this alliance because I think you have a good mix of people here who, like, you have Rachel, who's going to be more strategic than Frank, but also a bit more direct. Where Frank, like I've said, I think his emotional intelligence and his intuition, you used a great word with that. Um, him is just, or like with him, is just going to drive him forward. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have Yuling, like you said, she just was voted number one, and she's had that path that we talked about early on. You don't want to come out too strong because
Yeah.
then you're a target. And so with so many people, how many times have we heard it? Like, you need to let your personality out more, Yuling. Like, we know it's there. Like, keep showing it, or whatever. She's got that upward trajectory going for her at a good rate, that I think that this is a great three-person alliance, just not only strategically, but as a viewer that I know I'm going to enjoy.
Yeah, for sure.
After this chat, we have a couple that I think like are not important for us to really like talk too much about, but we'll mention them. So Brew chats Carol, and they kind of like solidify their alliance. And we have Alyssa chatting Nathan, and they both like have mutual alliances or at least connections with Brew and Yuling. So, um, in my opinion, this serves a purpose for later on in the episode when we get to the safety chain, if we want to call it that, because I felt like I was watching like,
It's giving safety chain.
yeah, I felt like I was watching a mini at that point. Like, that's why I've seen that. I've been in one of these before.
No, for
So
real.
that I feel like that was the reason for showing them, but otherwise, I don't have
Hmm.
much to say about them. Anything you want to say about those two chats?
Yeah, Brew and Mama Carol again. It's just giving Wonder Bread and furniture. Just I'm not here for it. Like, yeah, we get it. The brand mother and her adoptive son. I was like, okay, next. I feel like any conversation Brew's in, and I don't hate Brew, y'all. I really don't. But it's just I don't know. There's no. I feel like there's a lack of urgency or like
Mm-hmm.
a lack of like chaos that just makes these conversations a little boring and lackluster. Because well, we'll see about this conversation how much weight it actually has in the like in the decision that we'll talk about a little bit later. um but yeah, I was just like, okay, I don't know how strong Bruce allies are. Really confusing to me sometimes. So, or like, again, his strategy is what we talked about. His strategy is very confusing and makes no sense to me. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if it's because he doesn't say his thoughts out loud that I just don't understand what's going on. But to see this conversation, I'm like, how much value does it really have? Because Brew's game doesn't make any sense to me in the first place. And Mama's Carol has been pushing the fact that she wants to work with women, but also has this good relationship with Brew. It's just all in all very confusing. And then Nate and Alyssa finally understanding that they have the same allies. Wow, pretends to be shocked. I don't know. This is not new news. Like, y'all, again, we're playing caricatures. So at the end of the day, it just gives very popular kids. And I don't like popular kids. Like, there's nothing wrong with being popular for sure in high school. Like, sometimes you don't peak in high school, even if you're popular or not. Who cares? But I don't know. When I see those conversations, I'm like, oh, you found your clique. Okay. And it starts great for Nathan, I guess. But like at the same time, do these people really have his best interest at heart? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. So it's I feel like there's no value because there hasn't been a point where we've really had to test how honest and true and valuable though that conversation really is.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, and also the episode prior, they just said they didn't want to form a foursome,
Yeah.
which also I hate that word. But sorry, that's just like a personal ick. Like they just didn't want to form a foursome with him. So all of a sudden it's like this conversation with Alyssa and Nathan is supposed to prove what? Like it doesn't prove anything to me. That like it's like meh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's just filler. I mean, it does make sense long term, but it just feels more like filler at the end of the day for like what we see happen.
Yeah, I think
Um,
it's all supposed to just kind of set up what happens at the end of episode 8. more than anything else, just so it could
Yeah.
be like, we saw this conversation. Is it going to impact anybody's decision? Otherwise, like I said, I don't have much to say about him.
Very like plateau.
Yeah.
But yes. But there is one conversation I think that's way worth discussing, and I can't wait to talk about that one.
After we have those chats, we are introduced to two new players. We are introduced to Everson, who is a 35-year-old man who is a cruise boat director. I have a friend who I worked with at camp who does this job, and like, you have to be a special type of person to do this, because like, you are like always acting, performing. You have
um,
like, it's almost like you're a mascot, but your costume is yourself. Does that
that's
make
kind of
sense?
crazy.
Yeah, it's like because you're not a celebrity, but like on the cruise you're a celebrity, but you're like, you have to like sing and dance, do all these things. It's like Chuck E. Cheese without the costume. It's kind of crazy, but he like definitely has the sense and personality of like, oh, you telling me that he's a cruise boat director, like,
Makes sense.
yeah, like, okay,
It
that
aligns.
checks out, yeah. And then we meet Trevor. And so if you watched the season 2 of the US Circle, you've seen Trevor before, because his wife Delisa, the winner, catfished as him. And so now we've brought Trevor back, and he's playing as his wife's friend Imani. Um, the one thing I took from it is he said flirting is going to be part of his game, which is already annoying me, but I'm gonna give Trevor the benefit of the doubt here. So, what are you feeling about Everson and Trevor?
Honestly, I have less to say about them as people. I'm like, okay, like the next group of people. Obviously, I feel like people feel some type of way about Trevor's presence being here. I personally don't really care that much, but I'm also not a super fan. For those who like watch Big Brother Canada, I got so annoyed that Kyle kind of got auto cast,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like this is a comparable season, and I think I don't care because I like the winner of season 2. Plus, it's like catfishing, so it's not really him. But like, I'm sure there are people who audition who kind of feels like, oh damn, like I'm kind of annoyed that like I auditioned and there was one less spot because I'm not married to someone who went on a previous season and won. But I personally don't care. It's like a returning player kind of to me. Like if
Mm-hmm.
someone came back, I wouldn't care that much. But I have a lot to say about their profiles. I think ever since choice of profile picture,
Not good. It was the
the
same face
eyes,
twice. Yeah, it's just that one was hidden behind sunglasses because he was dressed as Prince, but the
Prince,
other one, it's like, you're either
it's
scared or
jarring.
pooping right now. Like, what is going on?
It's an interesting choice. Like if I was on a dating profile, I would definitely swipe left. Even though Emerson's a very attractive person, I
That's
don't just
yeah. Like,
like I
men are
just
so bad
don't
at choosing their own photos
like it
and
was a
taking.
choice.
Yeah.
And while I can respect, I'm pro-choice, this decision's being made. That one is one I can't get behind, but I respect that you made that choice that I don't agree with, and that's
Mhm.
okay. There are people in the world dying and you chose that picture and we'll move on. So I just didn't like that picture. I think it did no services for his profile, especially when he's a newbie and people are going off first impressions, which is your profile. And Rachel made a comment that just kind of encapsulates why that was a terrible decision of a picture in the first place. I think Rachel said, why is he looking at me like that? Which I
Mhm.
found that was so funny. Um, and then one thing I realized is that a lot of black women profiles, people are like, immediately they're like, oh, that's a catfish. We kind of saw that
Mhm.
last season. I believe season 3. I forget her name, but she fought with that girl like episode 1, and it was chaos. Since if anyone knows the name, put the comment below. But she also immediately people are like, oh, I think her profile's catfish, even though there was nothing catfish about her. And
Mhm.
I got that same vibe. Obviously, Money is a catfish, but it was that same energy. Her pictures were similar to the girls from the previous season, like
Mhm.
energy wise. I didn't want to say vibes, but vibes wise. So I don't know. I was like, that's so interesting that people just immediately assume that that's a catfish, even though they have nothing to go off of. If you think she's pretty, just say that. I don't know. Like,
Right.
I don't know.
The one thing I have to say about these two new players is what the fuck was Everson drinking out of? Did you see him like drinking out of
A
uh
vase.
yeah, it was like not even like a normal vase. Like it has a
It's like
circle in the middle so that it's almost like a
it looked
donut
almost like a
shape in the middle.
fish.
Yeah, like it was
Yeah.
crazy. I'm like, does he know that's not a glass? He did something else later on. Oh, he was like he drank straight out of the blender later on.
He just doesn't use a glass. Honestly, Circle, if you're ever watching producers, we would love to give him a specific cup so that he would be able to finally drink out of the cup. And I
Right.
think next season, next episode, I might drink out of this particular thing, even though there's a bunch of holes, just in honor of Emerson not being able to drink out of a normal cup. So
For our
stay
next
tuned.
podcast, everybody bring your most unique
Every
drinking vehicle.
I think next time we bring someone on and the theme of the episode is drink but don't use a glass. Like, you know those like people who go to school without a backpack for a day?
Yeah.
We drink out of something that's not is it a drinking utensil, a cup? I don't know.
Glassware. Yeah, something like that.
And viewers, you have to do it next time as well with us. So I guess next time we're doing wine and on not the proper drinking utensils is what I'm going to use as a term.
Well, after Everson is done drinking out of the vase, we get an alert that each of these two new players has to host a party, and the rest of the players will get to choose which party they attend. So Imani is given the toga party, Everson is given the under the sea theme, and they have to come up with their like their taglines, their slogans, and stuff for the invitation that all the rest of the players will get to see. And then those players will get to choose which party they go to. So before we see who chooses what after they see the invitations, we have a chat between Nathan and Rachel. And Nathan reached out to Rachel saying that, hey, you know what makes sense? We came in at the same time. We should really stick together. And Nathan also acknowledges that Rachel was good to call out Carol in her roasts. So, what did you think of the Rachel and Nathan conversation? Do you think this was a smart move by Nathan?
This is a conversation that I was alluding to earlier about a
Mm-hmm.
conversation that's actually worth something, that actually shows some type of strategy. I feel like the last two conversations were kind of like check-in conversations or like how are you? Very small talk, whereas this one was, I also realized that I'm a person that just like stuff like straightforward. Like if you want to have a
Same.
conversation about like game, just talk to me about it. I don't want to have the small stuff. I like literally realized that today when I was on the phone. Someone called me and I missed their call. And I was like, hey, what's up? What you want? Like, not what you want, but I was like, hey, what's up? Like, I saw that I missed your call. What's up? Like, you know? And the person goes, hi, how are you? And I was like, oh my God, we have to do small talk. I literally
Yeah.
just asked you, why did you call me last time? Love you, Cream, if you ever hear this. No shade. But yes. So I just like that they're both game players and they're both like, let's just get into the game. That's what we're here for. You know what? Um, I know that I kind of threw you under the bus, but hey, let's be adaptable. Let's
Mm-hmm.
treat this as voting blocks. It was giving
Yeah.
very Survivor, like very like this is a voting block. Um, you know, we might not have worked together last round, but who's to say we can't work together in the next round? And I liked how open both of them were, and that's the type of gameplay I like to see. Like, don't get me wrong, I love to see entertainment. I love someone who's a little bit petty, but at the same time, I'm also here for good gameplay. And that conversation was phenomenal. I was like, yes, move on. Who cares? It was a first impression. Everyone's a catfish technically, so who cares? You need to be with people who are gonna vote with you, who are gonna vote for you to be number one if you want to be influencer, at least not the bottom. And they both did what they set out to do, and I was here for it, and I was so thankful. I was like, yes. And this is when I realized that I could actually root for Nathan. This was a
Mm-hmm.
turning point because while yes, Alex comes in I feel like Alex was cast as the nerd or the strategist, strategic AF, in his words, more like his T-shirt, anyways. So I get that was his archetype, but people can be casted that way and like don't actually deliver or don't really connect with me as a viewer. And I think he did that in that moment. In that moment, I'm like, okay, he's actually here to play. He's not actually just here to say that he's gonna do this or whatever. And I could actually root for him because like obviously we have people around us, mutuals who are rooting for him based off the fact that they know him.
Hmm.
Whereas for me, I don't care if I know you. If you're not giving me good gameplay or whatnot, I can't stand behind you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I can't. I might be a little sad by the terrible gameplay, but I can't stand behind you. And for once I was like, maybe I can stand behind Alex and Nathan moving forward at this point on. And so I was very proud. And Rachel, again, pulled a Frank, said, I can move on. I don't care. It's about the now, not about the past. Let's keep it pushing. So I was here for this conversation. I think it was a dope conversation, um, and worthwhile. But again, I don't know how you felt about this conversation because you clearly have thoughts on our friend Alex.
No, I actually think you made a good point that like this, not that that's so much a turning point for me in rooting for Alex. Like I'm not so much anti Alex as much as it is, I don't know, you just really put me off by coming in with a shirt that says strategic AF. Like let us it's the nice guy thing, you know, like when a guy like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm such a nice
Tell
guy, blah
Show up
blah.
instead of telling us.
Yeah, or like someone who's like, "Oh, I'm so funny. I'm so like." I, Comedians don't go on stage and say, "I'm
I'm
funny."
so
Like
funny.
they
Laugh
tell
at my
jokes
jokes.
so that
Yeah.
you laugh at them, and then you deduce from that, "Oh, they're funny."
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was like kind of just the sense that I got from him, and but these two did something that I've wanted to happen for so long in the circle. And again, I didn't watch last season, so if it happened last season, sorry, season 3, not a slight at you. But it was a strategic conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It was both of them kind of looking past how they might have done each other wrong, whatever it might be, but like understanding, oh, we really do need each other in order for us to have the best chance of continuing forward. Because if we come in and act as separate entities, like we're now two still of the newer people who are against each other, it's easier to get one of us out. But if the two of us are moving together, then we're a bit of a force. And so this is like the evolution of gameplay I want to see in the circle to continue keeping the circle interesting. So I was really happy with this conversation as well. So it's not like it, I don't know if it makes me root for Nathan any more than I was before. Um, but I appreciate it, and I am rooting for Rachel. So I like that. Okay, she has another person on her side, more likely to keep her around.
Fair.
After this conversation, the players realize that we have two new players coming in, and they're inviting you to a party. You have to choose who you're going to go and see. Um, so they each pick their parties. I'm not gonna lie, the parties didn't do much for me. So
I will say it did feel a little rigged, to be honest,
mhm,
because in the sense that like first of all, under the sea for someone who works on a cruise,
mhm,
like it just feels like they wouldn't make that up for someone who is a catfish. Like I don't feel like they would do that on purpose for anyone who's a
right.
catfish because like then if there's a prompt about under the sea your cruise, like that person can obviously gauge in that conversation, so it's much more easier. And
I don't
so
know.
I
Cruise
felt a
ships
little
are
too,
above the sea. If they're below the sea,
yeah,
then
but
that's like Titanic shit, and no one wants that.
it's, well, it is giving, it's giving the same atmosphere, the same sector,
Yeah,
the
I
same.
get it. Everson is an octopus. I got you. Keep it going.
He can do under and over the sea. Didn't he say he was a merman, to be
Yeah,
specific?
he did.
It's giving very H2O. For those who know, you know. But yeah, so it was just like I was just like, okay, very on the nose, but also immediately when I saw both parties, I'm like, I want to go to the toga party. And of
Mhm.
course, well, no shade to Trevor, but you know, he just so happens to be someone who's affiliated with the winner. So to have a
Mhm.
party that you're more likely to go to in comparison, I
Mhm.
mean, we see the results of how many people go to which party, but me myself, I was like, I would want to go to the toga party, and I didn't even hear about any of the rest of it.
Yep.
So I don't know. It just felt like I feel like we should have done themes that are really like on the same level, first of all,
Mhm.
and that had nothing to do with or in relation to someone's occupation.
Yeah,
Um,
or let them choose the themes.
yes, but I understand that they have to prepare the
The
boxes, whatever.
costumes, yeah, I know.
But like maybe like a decades party or like something that's just like in the same vein.
Or even if like say there was 5 themes to choose from, then
Hmm.
like they each choose the one that they want to do. So they could still have like supplies ready to go. Um, but yeah, I like even just with like the conversation stuff that happened at the party, I didn't think anything really like strategic happened there.
Yeah.
I didn't think that there's like much to recap. I probably would have also, I don't know, I might have. I probably would have picked the toga party as well, just because like under the sea, I would have been afraid that I'd have to wear like a bathing suit on national television. So uh, I would pick the toga that's gonna cover me from shoulder to ankle. So I probably would pick the toga for that
That was a
reason.
little too real, and now that I think about it, I also maybe would have thought of that too,
Oh,
which
I
is like
100 like that's exactly where
alarming.
my brain went first. Like under the water, nah, dog. I'm
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. That's what I mean. The parties were definitely not on the same level,
Mhm.
and so that could have caused a little bit of like
Yeah, Under the Sea has very like middle school dance vibes to it, and Toga Party has like let's
very
get
adult.
trashed on a Saturday college theme party type.
Yeah.
So they get one last alert before the episode ends. We've talked like an hour about the first episode. Is that there's no new players. So these are the final players in the circle. Like the winner is coming from who is here. Um, which I mentioned this on our last episode. I really liked that this season, except for Jared, aka the Spice Girls, entering, everybody else is entered as a pair, and I think it sets the new people up a little bit more for success than it has in
Yes.
previous seasons.
Agreed.
Um, I do think that we are set up to have a wild ride to the finish with these 9 people here. Um, and I'm interested to see how we get down from 9 to 5 in the way that it goes. We know that we're going to lose someone this episode via the safety chain antivirus thing. Um,
Hmm.
but then those final 3, because they've already, in a preview, not to get too far ahead, said that we're going to have a super secret influencer, uh, meaning that person it gets to block someone and doesn't have to tell anybody who they were or whatever. So that's a lot of power. But how those other 2 people are going to go, and I just when I got that, like I'm already thinking like, oh wow, are we really that close to the end? But I do think we still have at least episodes next week and the week after. I just don't know if 2 weeks from now we get 4 episodes or if it's going to be like just a finale or something, but whatever, that's fine. So the important part of this is we have no new players coming into the circle. We have met everybody who's going to be here.
I am very happy for that. I'm very ecstatic. It feels like normally seasons there's way more people that have to come in and come out. I just like that this was the amount. I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that they came in pairs.
I think really it is. I think because every time we lost one, we gained one versus like we've lost one and gained 2. So it's a bit slower of losing people. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we're on episode 8 and only 2 people have been blocked, and then you had the Spice Girls leave.
That's so interesting. But yes, we're for, I guess, producers, if you're listening, we're for 2 people. Keep it this way.
Yeah, this is good.
Thumbs
I,
up.
I definitely like this. So the next day after the parties, basically we get 2 group chats formed, and the group chats are the opposite of how the parties were the night before. So Everson, who only had Brew and Rachel attend his party, has a group chat with Nathan, Yuling, Alyssa, Carol, and Frank. And then Amani gets to have a conversation with just Rachel and Brew because they were the only 2 that didn't go to Amani's party the night before. So in Everson's chat, they catch Everson up on the fact that the Spice Girls were there, and I would be like Everson in the fact of, wait, shit, I miss the Spice Girls. Like, I'd be so mad about that if I found out that, like, oh, everybody else got to talk to the Spice Girls except me. Like, what the fuck?
Did the producers tell them to talk about the Spice Girls? Because the fact that they both chats conveniently talked about the Spice
I
Girls, I was
think
like,
that's the easiest way to talk about what's happened in the game without giving up anything like too informational or too strategy wise. Like, yeah, like so far, you know what's wild? Like the Spice Girls were here. You don't have to talk about who were influencers, who accused who of being a catfish or any of these things. Like you could really focus on that. And I mean, how do you not have a full blown conversation finding out that 40% of the biggest girl group ever was playing the same game as you?
that's true. I found it was very convenient.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna lie, like every time we've had a new player, it's been, oh my god, welcome X to the Circle family. We love each other here. Hashtag familia. Hashtag you won't regret it. Like
Mm-hmm.
very that. And so for us to have an actual normal conversation about something that I would like to hear when someone new's come in, I'm like, this feels so unnatural from everything that we've seen so far that it just feels a little bit like maybe the producers are like inform them about the fact that the prize is now 50K
Mm-hmm.
bigger. Like that's just like what came up to me. But aside from that, nothing very vulnerable like relevant came from those conversations. But I am curious to ask you, would you have rather been in a scenario where you were in a chat like Brew and Rachel? Would you have rather been in the big group like
Oh,
from the start?
in life, in games, in every component, put me in the smallest group possible. I think that it is far more beneficial because it is easier to be a part of the connection versus in a bigger group. Like, sure, you can speak up, but then you're almost seen as like the loudmouth versus in a group of three, like, it's very easy for everybody to contribute and not contribute too much versus like you could be seen as the quiet one and like why didn't so and so say anything or why they only say one thing. And it almost like in you like Yuling's sense where Yuling contributed a bit earlier on but everyone was like we want to hear you more, but if Yuling is like too loud or doing too much, like, you know what I mean, that I think that group of three is it's a lot easier to actually form connections versus there's too many agendas at play in that bigger group.
I will say I agree. I was thinking about it in the because I was like, do you think people intentionally pick parties based off where they think people would go,
Mm-hmm.
or do you think they just went off vibes? Because if my immediate reaction is to go to Toga and I want to be in that smaller group, I'd probably go to the sea, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how strategic it is. I'm very interested to see. I wish we'd have known more of the players' thought process about picking what they picked,
Yeah.
but we move. But we move.
So both groups, like we said, talked about the Spice Girls, and then we got a little bit more into it in the smaller group, Imani, Rachel, and Brew. Rachel puts Mama Carol on blast in that
Ah,
group
she
chat.
should.
So Rachel is not holding back in terms of telling anyone and everyone with two ears, two eyes, like Mama Carol.
Two eyes, two ears, one mouth,
Yeah.
a nose, perhaps.
You don't even need to have all 10 fingers or toes. We don't even care about that. But in the circle, you at least need two eyes. And she is telling anyone and everyone, like Mama Carol, though, watch out for her because that's she's sketchy. You got to keep an eye out.
I love Rachel. It's like she gives me what I need in terms of because I think she's I think she's strategic, but the fact that she just is nonchalant and doesn't care about being direct like some of these
Mm-hmm.
other players is so refreshing. We need to cast more people like this. Imagine we had a season where people just said everything they thought,
Yeah.
like how good that would be. Like just people just throwing people under the bus, causing chaos. And I think Rachel by the profile, Amani does seem like someone who would like want to hear as it is. And so
Mhm.
I like that Rachel was like, girl, let me tell you what the tea is. Let me tell you who to watch out for so that I can, like, low key, it serves as a purpose to be like, stay away from this person and stay with me because I just filled you in on things that no one else wanted to fill you in on. And you just had a party and no one gave you information, but I'm giving you information. So back me because I'm clearly backing you.
Yeah.
That's everything that Mama Carol wishes she could have done to have
Mhm.
other people in her pocket instead. And I think that's a big theme is like, don't tell us, show us,
Mhm.
give us something. And so I think Rachel did that really well. And Bruce's reaction, I think, was a bad decision.
Yeah,
Like,
Brew got like defensive of Mama Carol.
yeah, for context a little bit more for the viewers, like after Rachel kind of like just said, hey, Mama Carol ain't it, Bruce was like, oh, not to say that she's my ally, but I don't think she's half bad.
Yeah, and he definitely put their relationship and even as far to say alliance on display for Amani and Rachel. And especially if you're going to give that information to Rachel, who's openly campaigning against Mama
Against,
Carol, that, like, okay, well, if I can't take out Mama Carol for
I can
whatever
take you
reason it
out.
might be, then let me go for the needs of the person closest to Mama Carol, and that's Brew. Like, Brew just fed that information to Rachel when he was just like trying to be a good guy and defend his ally. Like, nope, you don't need to defend anybody except yourself, buddy.
And that's what I mean. Bruce strategy again doesn't make sense to me. And I think the way I think I think Brew is not self-aware enough to acknowledge how much of a blunder that was to just be like, she's not that bad. Like, no, who cares? You should have sat there, ate your food, or just chilled in the hot tub. Technically, I'm saying eat your food as a saying, y'all, not literally, but you should have sat in the hot tub and just been like, uh-huh, okay, and relate that information to Mama Carol. That would have been the smart thing to do. But the fact that he did not, that was just a choice. A lot of things were done by Brew that just didn't make any sense. And it made Amani just respect Rachel more and not so much Brew. So yeah, Rachel again, climbing the ranks up for one of my favorite players this
Hmm.
season. For sure. Mad respect.
After or after these two group conversations, we get, or is it during the conversations, we get the cyber attack come up. And it's kind of like, wait, what's going on? When you saw the cyber attack go up, what did you think was going to happen? Because I had an immediate thought of like, oh shit, this could get good. What did you think was going to happen?
Well, it was giving very purge, so I was like, "Ooh, someone's going down." Like I was really excited because I'm like, first of all, the circle did a great job of making that whole experience scary and creepy. Like
Mhm.
I was thinking, I was watching, and I was like, I can't imagine being in that room and being comfortable. Like
Mhm.
I'd be so uncomfortable. I think
Mhm.
at some point you kind of get the vibe that Alex was like trying to look at the cameras and be like, producers, is something okay? Like I
Yeah.
think my thing is wrong. Like, ooh, someone help me. I can't play the game. But I think it was I was like anticipating. I was like, ooh, what are you gonna give it to us? Because the circle's been kind of pretty tame with like the
Mhm.
twists so far.
Yeah.
I feel like everything we've seen so far has been done except from obviously the Spice Girls. But two people coming into the house as one, it's still kind of done before, you know,
Mhm.
and we've kind of been playing around with the whole celebrity thing with Lance Bass the season prior or 2 seasons prior. I don't know. But so to have something kind of just anticipate and you don't know what it is and you don't think it's something you've done like you've seen before. Because the last time we saw a cyber attack kind of was when someone was duplicating a profile, which is something that we've seen before. So for
Mhm.
the viewers not to know what the heck was going on, as well as the players for like the first time, honestly, I feel like the viewers have kind of always known what was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Um, was really cool, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to see what this is.
See, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, they're gonna expose conversations.
Oh, like ooh, that would have been fun.
Yeah, that I thought we were gonna get like that far into it. So I got excited. And I'm not saying that like what happened wasn't cool or whatever, but because my initial thought was like, oh, they're gonna
See
pull from
conversation.
these, and we're gonna see that maybe it could be anonymous, like, you know what I mean? That um
Ooh, yes.
I
Like
thought we were gonna
a
have some sort
throuple
of activity,
chat.
like, yeah, some like,
Oh,
and
that would have
it
ate.
doesn't say who's in it, but like there's a message that has hashtag thruple in it, and that's gonna send everyone into a spiral of like, okay, there's a 3 person, or the hashtag inner circle or whatever. You know what I mean? Like the
Mm.
someone calling out like one of Rachel's messages, even the one she just had to Baru and Imani of like, this is Carol, like exposing Carol, whatever. That was where I thought we were going. So I
Mm.
will say that two things. One, I was a little disappointed that it wasn't as intense as I thought it was going to be. At least like in terms of the game, I do think that the safety chain at the end has a level of intensity that is great. But two, Netflix, again, this is an idea that I'm giving you. So it's KGD26 on Venmo. Send me the money and use that next season because I think that would be great.
Sorry, I lied. What did you
I
say?
was like, is she there? Um, so I was just saying that my two things were I was a little disappointed because I had
Yes,
like built up such a good idea. And so two is that um, Netflix pay me for that good idea and you can use it next season.
absolutely. Give her her royalties because that is such a good idea. You know what's crazy? The twist turns out to be obviously a safety chain, but we don't know that yet. It just starts off with everyone has a virus except for the two new people.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I was like, what if this turns out to be a safety chain?
Oh, really?
And I was, yeah, because I was like,
I think I also had that idea, but I might have gotten it from like a preview or something. But I
oh.
definitely immediately was like, dude, what if they expose conversations anonymously? That would be sick.
And honestly, I would just like to say that reality producers should really I don't know, give credit where credit is due, and that is to the mini community
Yes.
because not only did Big Brother Canada do the safety chain this season, which just immediately reminded me of every mini I've played ever.
Mhm.
The fact that Circle did it too, I know they're casting out of the pool of people who play minis,
Mhm.
specifically Sequester, that haunted word or whatever. Honestly, I don't really care. I wasn't a part of that community, so you can't really say anything to me. But it's just like it's just crazy. I'm like, they have to be watching us play. They
Mhm.
have to be because we have some stars, we have some good twists, some good
Mhm.
production, some good concepts. I don't know. It's a little fishy.
Mhm.
I'm sure someone saw the idea somewhere from a mini and said, yeah, and then pitched it. It made it seem like this was their idea. But minis have been doing a lot of these new twists that you've never seen before, way before our television series, Netflix broadcasts have been doing. So honestly,
Mhm.
credit where credit was due. But yes, I was very happy that obviously both players were immune, but I was like, yes, you guys have to target some of like the OGs, and you
Mhm.
guys can't really gang up on one person like a traditional season would. But
Mhm.
yes, um, when you found out that they had to give the antivirus to someone, did you? Who did you think initially they were going to give it to? Because the
I
idea was that both of them were going to give it to
right.
someone individually
I assumed Frank.
from jump.
Yeah. Well, I mean from like the yeah, basically from jump because Amani seemed really, really big on Frank, and I feel like
Hmm.
Everson didn't have enough to go against that. You know what I mean? Like, okay, that's cool. I could give it to him, and that would also like build the relationship where um, no one else to me see. I guess like the only person I could see would be uh, maybe Amani also thinking Rachel because of
Yeah.
like how transparent they were, but no, I initially was like Amani seems super big on Frank, and I can't see Everson opposing that for any reason.
Yeah, I think I was because initially I thought they were just gonna give it to one person, but they kept like
implying they each would give
that
one.
we each get one. So I
Yeah.
also thought it was Frank, like from Jump. But Emerson, I was like, he would probably. It was kind of weird because I feel like we didn't get any like strong like Emerson feelings about the other people in his party. I feel like Amani kind of was just like Frank's my type of person. Like because of the party vibes that yes, I said vibes. Frank emits to the world, to the circle world. So overall, I was like, okay, like I assume not to like I thought it was going to be one of the two.
Hmm.
Oh, we also have Esme in our chat. Hi, Esme. That said, I thought it was going to be Frank or Rachel. So I think we all had an idea that it was going to be those two. But I think that's they really shined in this episode. I think we got a lot of
Hmm.
attention on them, so that's probably why we thought that way. But yeah, and honestly, we obviously ended up being right.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Not really, because you're watching it.
So after the cyber tech comes up, one of the first things that happens with it is everybody gets assigned a photo album of another player, and
Mm.
that player has to choose a picture from that photo or from that photo album, and then they also get to ask an anonymous question. So, both I just like forgot his name. Everton.
Emerson.
I went to say like Everton, Emerson, and Everson all at once, like and make up a whole new ass name. But
I love
uh,
that for you. Come on,
Everton,
ingenuity.
yeah. Let me name your child. Um,
Carrie's book of names.
um, and Amani. So the two of them don't have to participate. They just kind of like get to sit back and watch.
Mm-hmm.
So how this goes down, Carol has Frank, and oh, I didn't even write down their questions, to be honest. I like wrote down my reactions to their questions, which in hindsight is dumb. But here we are. This is where we're at.
I think I
So,
remember the question.
oh, was
Not
it who
verbatim.
would you bring on a boat with you?
No, that was Frank's question to Brew.
Oh, okay, okay.
Um, Mama Carol got the question like pretty much like, are you done being the nice guy?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Like, are
Everyone
you?
knew it was
Is this
Carol
the
right away too, but except Frank. Frank thought it might be Brew because of like the turtleneck or
which
something.
was so funny. No, I think that was the funny. First of all, I think Frank handled that question perfectly up until he mentioned Brew.
Yeah, I was like, wow, you did not need to throw a shot out there, Frank. Like,
Not the turtleneck. I was like,
mhm.
hello. I
Yeah,
was like, did you really think that? Like, I was real. I was like, this is an anonymous game. Like, everyone can like throw shots and jabs. You never know. So
mhm,
why would you think it's Brew?
right.
It was so interesting. I'm like, did you want to make an enemy out of Brew? I would just like to sit with Frank and ask, why did he do that particular
Especially
thing?
thinking it's Brew after like Brew's upfront roast. I feel like that just isn't a Brew type of question. You know what I mean? Like Brew
Mm,
won the roast battle. Brew didn't really have an issue saying things with his name attached to it. So like that way, I don't know, it just didn't like line up with thinking that it was Brew. I was very confused by Frank thinking that.
mm-hmm.
After we or the next one we have is Rachel who has Ewing, and basically Rachel says like asks who do you trust the most in the circle, and Ewing does not give an answer. Ewing answers but doesn't answer the question.
Here's first of all, you can't roast.
No.
And then we only just been being terrible at these games. But here's the thing: I don't. There's one thing I don't understand. It's because players like ask questions and they're like, "It's such a cop out that you Link didn't answer the question," and then they get a question and then they cop out. I'm like, why did you do all this hooting and hollering for you to do the exact same thing two
Right.
minutes later? I don't know. So the whole trust thing is really weird. Like about the whole like I think she could have easily been like I can tell you who I don't trust and
Mhm.
moved forward, or like given a little bit more than the whole like plateau thing. But I also understand like not wanting to show your cards. Who the heck
Right.
wants to show their cards in a game?
Right.
Hello? Like it's like playing poker and being like, y'all, I'm gonna lay my cards right here and play this game and hopefully still win.
Yeah, Ewing made the right like game decision there
I
in
think it was
terms
the
of
execution.
yeah, the in terms of being a viewer, obviously I want you to give an answer, and obviously the players want an answer out of that as well. But like, she's got to save herself there. The answer that she gave very much gave me um, similarities to like every ninth grade essay I ever edited as like a teacher. Like, oh yeah, I'll read that for you. I'll check it over. It's like, okay, so what's the original question? Because all you did was like write cliches that kind of align to the prompt a bit, but like have not given me any worthwhile information. That was what I got out of Ewing's answer. Then we had Alyssa who had Rachel, and Alyssa kind of tried it here. She was basically like, "How can you say that you're Zen, but then at the same time like be so direct and stir the pot?"
Which is crazy coming from Alyssa. Do we
Mhm.
not remember Kate Gate? Really? Do we not? Do we have amnesia? I don't know. Math is not mathing to me. How are you gonna do one thing and do the complete opposite? Like pot calling the kiddo black. I don't know. It don't make no sense. But the thing is that also Rachel's very direct. Alyssa was like, it's interesting how cake. And then Mama
Yeah.
Carol just skipped over it and like did not care afterwards. And it
Right.
really had no consequence. Whereas what Alyssa's trying to do is things that Rachel does not like without a care.
Mhm.
And so I was just like, that's such an interesting question coming from you, Miss Ma'am. However, again, Rachel with like the good
Yeah,
answers.
for sure.
She said, I'm not one dimensional. Snaps across the yes. She's like it was giving the uncringy version of I am woman. Like I don't know
Yeah.
if you know that
Yes.
TikTok song. I am woman. Like it was giving the complete opposite of like she's like saying like you don't understand that I can be zen, but I can also say what I want to say and be opinionated and give my thoughts.
Yeah,
That's the
like
whole
I'm
point.
Zen because I'm able to do this. Like if I wasn't
Yes.
direct and was trying to keep everything inside or beat around the bush, that would like
Mhm.
lose my Zen. Yeah, no, Rachel gave such an amazing answer here.
I was here for it. I was here for it. It was such a good choice. And Alyssa was like, "Oh yeah," and I thought it was like such a like a pointless question. I'm not gonna lie.
Hmm.
Like, was she trying to make a target out of Rachel? Because like her being direct is actually like kind of like can be used to someone's benefit,
Hmm.
especially hers. Technically, I wish you would have like made her like ask her a question that she would answer and
Yeah.
cause chaos. Like, who do you think is like name three of the fakest people? Go.
Yeah.
She would have answered that,
Especially yeah,
and
because
that would have
she's
been
so
worth the
direct,
question.
right? Alyssa didn't
Yeah.
approach it well. She could have done better.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Yuling, who has Carol, and she is like so excited to have the opportunity to go at Carol. Now, I need a second unless you remember it because she basically just said like something. She called out Carol for being catfish, straight up.
I'm trying to
It was the
remember.
baby picture of Carol, and it was something along the lines of like, um, you in this picture, does it like match the face of like who you're playing or whatever, or like who you actually are, something like that.
I don't. I don't remember now. I'm blanking.
Yeah, I'm an
Damn.
idiot for not writing down the questions and writing down my response instead. So, it's been a bit since I've podcasted the circle, so forgive me. I'll be better next anonymous game. Um,
Next anonymous game. Fingers crossed. But I just remember being like, honestly, again, there's just been a setup by specific people to
mhm.
make the like kind of like the butterfly effect, like Carol being first influencer, Alyssa and Yuling having individual conversations with Mama Carol, them both being influencers, them both having that conversation, then Yuling talking to Krissa, then Yuling talking to um Frank, and then slash via Rachel. Like the way that went about, it's just a consequence for that moment entirely.
Mhm.
And so I was like not surprised that she did that, but I was very happy because I'm like, you know what? The more disposable this girl is, the more interesting gameplay can happen around Carol.
Mhm.
And it just depends on how people go about it. So honestly, I just like questions that are direct or that like have a direct point, like a direct purpose. Like Alexa's question to me had no direct purpose. Like I don't know what she was trying to do with that. I don't know. Like the Frank question too. I'm like, what was the purpose of that? Like what were we trying to get at?
Mhm.
That's not, if you want a specific result, you went about it the wrong way. Whereas that, I'm like, just say it directly. Call her a catfish. She can't do anything.
Mhm.
It's like at that point, you shouldn't even be asking questions. You should just be telling people what it is and letting
Yeah.
the person respond.
Yeah. And Carol was left to have to respond to the catfish accusations with this. Okay. So next, Frank has Brew. Frank asks like what two people from the circle would you bring on this boat with you? And Brew's like, I'll bring everybody. I love everybody.
Snooze.
Yeah, onward. So Nathan has Alyssa, and Nathan tried to get smart here. So he takes a picture that is clearly from Italy and puts, Alyssa, you told me you've never traveled before, then explain this picture of you in Italy. To which Alyssa like full on freaks out because Alyssa writes
So
down
good.
everything. Everything. And she's like, I've been to Italy multiple times. Like, what? I haven't talked about traveling with anyone. And so her response was like along the lines of, I write down everything that I say. I have not had a conversation about traveling with anybody. I've been to Italy. I'll gladly talk about it. Um, but do you think this is enough to cast some doubt on Alyssa for everybody else?
I think she did terrible with how she managed that. Some people might disagree, but I think she did terribly. And I'll tell you why. Because one, people don't, because of what was said already, like people don't automatically believe her. And that's what I mean by you need to tell instead of asking questions. Because when you tell people something, then you get the direct response that you want or kind of like the conclusion that you want, consequence, I guess. And so Nathan slash Alex ate town with that question. What an interesting thought. It didn't even come across my mind to be like, let me take a picture and lie on your name and
Mm-hmm.
just destroy your game. And that was so well done. Ah, hats off again. Credit
How
where
would
credit
you
is
have
due.
replied if you were Alyssa?
I'd been like, haha, you're kind of ridiculous. Like, nice try. Next. Because to me, the way she went about saying, I write everything down.
Mm-hmm.
You write everything down?
Mm-hmm.
Every conversation I have, I write everything down. I have all these notes. Girl, you got all these notes.
Mm-hmm.
She went up, that's what I mean. Like, that's the second thing that, like, my point. Like, she just went about it. She answered it the wrong way because she went on defensive, which never looks good.
Yeah.
And then she went and revealed the fact that she writes everything down. Everything is like written out. And so now I'm thinking, you're like scaring me because if I'm a catfish, first of all, I'm thinking, ooh, she can catch me in a lie. She's a person who could catch me in a lie. And she voted against Jared already, and the Spice Girls went to see her. It's like you already have things already from the past that are adding to the fact that you're writing notes. I would fear her. And then if I was everyone else, I'd be like, ooh, well, she might have great connections and a better memory than me. And so when it comes down to it, she can recollect the conversation that was had and use it to her advantage in comparison to me, who maybe wouldn't have had that many notes or whatnot. So I just think her like revealing the fact that she is doing all of this And if you look at her apartment, it's a lot. She was like not like lying or anything like that. Like I just think she just went about it the wrong way. Like I would have just played like clearly you're trying clearly you're threatened by me. And I think it's funny that you would make up that lie, but nice try. Obviously I'm Italian and that's something that I've had conversations with other people about.
Hmm. I think I would have just sent like 3 laugh emojis and said, if anyone wants to talk to me about my trips to Italy, I would love to have that conversation with you because I haven't had it yet. And then just let it go.
Yeah,
Like,
she just did too much.
yeah, she exposed a bit too much of like how hard she's playing by with that
Hmm.
component of it, and I don't think she realized that. And then last but not least, we have Brew who has Nathan, and so I thought this was smart by Brew. I don't know how you what you think of it, but Nathan has multiple golf pictures in his profile. He has the one of him as a kid, and there's also one of him like somewhat recently playing golf. And Brew asks, well, essentially, like, since you're such an avid golfer, what is an eagle in golf? And um, I do think that this was smart. I do wish that Brew was smarter about it though, because if Brew knows enough about golf, I think he could have come up with something a bit more um, a bit more difficult than just what's an eagle, because I think bird, if you like know anything about golf, you might have heard of a birdie. And I mean, Alex slash Nathan showed his logic and reasoning here as like, okay, well, if a birdie is 1 under, an eagle seems better than a birdie, so I'm gonna guess that this is 2 under. I thought that like it was smart by Brew. I thought it was even smarter by Alex, like use that logical thinking to get to the answer that he didn't know. I do wish that like Brew upped it. I don't know what I would have asked specifically about golf. Um, Actually, I think I would have said, I know what I would have asked instead is like, so what do you call it when you shoot 1 over par? Because I think that that's a less known term, which is a bogey, and left it there because I you remove that birdie component for him to get to eagle. So that's just like as someone who knows golf a little bit. But overall, like, what did you think of Bruce's tactic here?
Well, as someone who knows literally absolutely nothing about golf, Um, as someone just sitting there, like if I was in the house, he could have given any answer, and I'd been like, okay. Like
Mm-hmm.
Brew would then have to come forward and admit that that was his question, which would have been actually kind of bad for Brew because if he would have to come out and tell people, I asked the question, you got it wrong, or like even if he jokingly said, oh, so haha, like you clearly don't know golf, he would have to announce it for people to understand that he is the person who needs to get out. So even though he did that, like he would have to reveal the fact that he even asked that, and supposedly they're bros.
I don't know if he has to reveal that he asked it though. He could simply be
I
like,
mean, he has to though because if you, a lot of people, Yuling, Frank, Bear people, or the whole time were there like I don't know golf, so like they
mm-hmm,
were checked out of the conversation because they knew nothing about it. Obviously, if the answer is wrong, the person who asked the question is the sole person who's going to know that it's wrong, unless anyone else in the house has knowledge to golf. Which, to my like the way it appeared on the screen, no one else
yeah,
did. So Rue would have to come forward and say, "I asked this question. I said this, blah blah." And to some degree, it would have to get back to to Nathan, and I
mm-hmm,
think Nathan has enough to like use that kind of against Brew. But I do think that the question was smart for sure. Like not to take credit away from Brew at all. I think that was a really smart question. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh. And I even saw a tweet from Alex that said um that he saw all the pictures, so he knew all the pictures that were going to be accessible to him.
mm-hmm,
And so he saw the golf pictures and we're like, what am I really going to have to know about golf?
mm-hmm,
And then it proved him wrong.
yeah,
So his girlfriend apparently was like, no, like you need to study it, and he was like, no, who cares? I don't know really the logistics of that conversation, but um I think it was a very smart move on him to see the golf. To first of all, I think Brew just looked at the pictures and analyzed it and assessed what was in front of him.
Mhm.
and to see like it's one thing to see one picture, it's another to be like, I'm seeing several pictures, which means that that communicates to me that, and therefore he must know, and that's why I have to ask him the question. But if I was catfishing as Nathan and he just asked me that question, I wouldn't even have the logic to think about eagle, birdie. I didn't even know a birdie. You birdie, like what was the word? Bogey. Like,
Bogey, yeah, is one of
yeah, like for all I know, a bogey could be a sandwich, a
the.
Subway sandwich. Uh like nothing there. So I think the question was smart, but you know more about golf, so obviously it could have been a harder question
Mhm.
for sure. But who's to say that Brew even has that much knowledge on golf to begin with? So overall, I just think it was a good question, and I think that was like the biggest gap in judgment from Alex to not study
Mhm.
golf, and he was lucky that that was the term he used or that's the way he phrased it.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, I get your point. I do think that there's ways out for Brew in terms of not having to admit that it was him. Because I mean, like mini golf is also a thing. So like that terminology exists. Like you could know it from mini golf. You could know from like your parents being avid golfers if you're not a golfer, or like I don't know, whatever. Like I think there's ways around that Brew not having to admit it.
But he would
Um,
have to, like, the thing is that someone would, like, in that question, the circle wouldn't have gone, wrong. Like, the circle wouldn't have said anything.
well, I think John might have known, aka Carol. So you had at least one other person.
I don't know. I honestly got the impression that no one
No one else
knew
knew.
their, yeah.
Maybe it's just because I knew the answer that I was just like automatically viewing it from the point of
Yeah,
like,
because I couldn't tell you the answer.
well, that was the last of the questions, anonymous questions. I don't think anyone really left there too damaged. Alyssa might have taken the biggest hit,
No, yeah,
but that
Alyssa.
wasn't even like that bad.
Mm, I think it created doubt that wasn't there. I think Alyssa was
Yeah,
viewed as like the perfect person. And
yeah,
I think that was the like damage that was the, like all you need is a little bit of paranoia,
mhm,
a little bit of skepticism. Like
yeah.
that's all you need to like drive a wall, and I think that's what was done.
After this, we have an alert, and it says the new players are going to provide other players with antivirus. Anyone without the antivirus is going to be blocked. And again, I thought from this that like each player would give one out, not that they would be deciding together. So that was still implied from this point. And then we get a couple of chats before the antivirus distribution happens. So first we get Brew who chats with Nathan, and Brew lets him know that um, sorry, I got sidetracked. Esme said that he thinks Carol said something about knowing the
Oh,
answer. So,
but also
uh,
again, how would Carol have brought, like, you know what I mean? Like the aftermath after that, like someone would have to be like, that's wrong.
yeah.
So someone would be like, you asked that question then.
No, I get your point. I get your point. It's not being like what's the capital of the United States and like everyone in the room should know it versus it's a bit more of a niche thing to know about. So
Yeah.
no, I completely understand your point. We get Brew chatting with Nathan. Brew lets Nathan know that he got the question right. So he also like kind of admits there that he asked the question. Um, unless like Nathan thinks someone else did. And they're talking about Frank and Rachel as people they don't trust, even though Nathan doesn't really feel that way because he just like made that whole alliance with Rachel. And the chat just kind of like shuts down due to the cyber attack.
I love that. I love that they cut that conversation like that. I was like, yes, no more brood chat. Like I was like, yes, cut it off. Take it off my screen.
Then we get Rachel and Frank chatting, and Rachel questions Alyssa, but Frank says he believes that Alyssa is who she is. So again, like it might have worked a little bit. I don't know how much impact it had overall. And um, then their chat just gets like overloaded with pop-ups after that.
When it said there's a circle near you waiting
Yeah.
to chat, I lost my mind. I was like, whoever designed that, shout out to you, the graphic designer who did that. That was so funny. It was probably my favorite part of the episode,
It was
like
funny.
comedic wise.
After this, we get an alert and that the blocking is imminent. So Everson and Amani have to pick a player together to save, which again, like we've been saying, we thought that was going to be like each of them saves one, um, but together they have to save one. So they get put in a chat by themselves. They talk about it. And like we said before, they say Frank. Frank just gives off the energy that you want to
Good
have around you.
vibes.
Trademark, TM, copyrighted. So Frank gave off the good vibes. I mean, we saw Amani being all about Frank,
Yes.
and I doubt that Frank did anything to throw Everson off. So it seems like a safe choice. And from here, they have. Well, they were between Rachel, Frank, and Carol to save. Those were their three, which was interesting. That was like Carol was in there as well with
What did Carol
Rachel.
do but be the
Right.
mom? Honestly, and that's my thing. Carol does nothing but be a mom. And honestly, I'm quite frankly over it. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a mother. Like, well, okay, well, that's not necessarily true. But like, I was just over it. Like, ugh, whatever. She did not. Carol did nothing but be the circle mom, and that's what I mean by privilege. No, Carol's game is like, again, furniture. Like, there, it serves nothing. It gives nothing. When she has chats with the girls, none of the girls feel closer to her than
Mm-hmm.
before the chat. Like, the only person um Mama Carol has a relationship with is Brew,
Yeah.
and we
There's a
know how I
I
feel about that.
there's a bit of one with Alyssa after their whole like sex conversation, but
But
not
like
nothing major.
Alyssa doesn't prioritize Mama Carol to
Yeah,
the point
yeah.
that it matters. Like, Mama Carol's probably like fourth, and even then, Alyssa had a conversation with Nathan, so Mama
Hmm.
Carol could be fifth.
Yeah. So Frank has to save someone, and Frank is between saving Yuling and Rachel. So he decides to save Yuling, hoping that Yuling will save Rachel. I thought that was a ballsy move by Frank because Yuling's been here from the beginning and he has to know that he has or that Yuling has relationships with other people. So he really had to trust that Yuling was going to follow through on the conversation that the three of them had that morning. But like Yuling also has the thruple, so
But again, like, perception is reality, and he doesn't know about the throuple. But also,
mhm,
Yulin came into that chat apologetic about
mhm,
Krissa. So, to a degree, it just technically feels like she owes him one,
mhm,
which is not a position you want to be in the game, because then you feel like, I don't know, vulnerable, or
yeah,
like you need to give something back, and that takes away from potentially what would be best for your game.
mhm,
And so, that decision, and we kind of see it come to fruition because Yuling, she talks and she goes, "Oh, I think Frank picked me so I can pick Rachel," which
mhm,
was obviously his point. And so, like, I mean, it does work. Is it that risky when there's been a setup already? Again, the whole butterfly effect with everything that went on. The fact that Yuling kind of just did him dirty, she can't do it again. She can't pick someone who they literally just had a chat with. It would give Frank deja vu, and she would lose an actual ally that she wants to work with. So I think it would have been dumb for her to pick anyone else but Rachel.
right. I think the only way it's different is like if Frank I guess if Frank like wasn't safe, but that's the whole purpose of the safety chain is like, do you? Because now what Yuling does have to decide between though is, okay, do I make Frank happy as like a okay, my bad, I shouldn't have gotten rid of Krissa, but in this decision, she's upsetting Brew and Alyssa, so she's like to make to make one happy, to make it up to one, she is upsetting at least two other people who would be expecting um, to be saved by her. So there is like a trade off in that decision. And like I especially Alyssa, like the two of them were just influencers together. Like she keeps saying, like she said to Nathan, like Ewing and Brew are my number one. So she did have to, like, that was really an investment of a decision by Ewing to go with Frank as opposed to Alyssa.
I agree, but also like I think Yuling holds a little bit of like resent. Like she's turned off by Alyssa
Oh,
because
a
of
hundred
that
percent.
conversation. Because I'm sure Yuling probably did fight a little for Mama Carol to go.
Mhm.
And you know what I mean? And then maybe she was just like, you know what? I don't want to fight. So let's just, we don't really know 100% what went down after that. We kind of just got we've made a decision,
Mhm.
head nods, whatever. And then we find out who goes home. So we don't really know how intricate that is. But also, Yuling, like, to me, she doesn't care that much about Brew. I don't know if I'm the
No.
only one who got that vibe, but like she's kind of like she's like a friendly person. She's funny. She does the doing of things that she needs to do. But like to me it's like she kind of gets like a sometimes when she talks like when he's like is he flirting with me? To
Mhm.
me it felt more like a disgust than it did intrigue. So or like confusion.
Mhm.
So I can understand. I just think it's a culmination of everything that happened up until that point where she made that decision and that decision was that trade-off was worth more going to Frank at that point in time.
Mhm.
Maybe the day before it would have been a different situation, but at that point in time it was worth more because of everything that had happened. Because I guess she had a big week to say the least. So,
Yes.
but I was very ecstatic that she picked Rachel. Rachel was literally like, Frank, if you don't pick me, I'm going home. If
Yeah.
you don't pick me, like losing her mind, which it's okay, Queen. I get it. But you never know. You also have to trust them allies and relationships you just made, which makes me a little bit concerned of her like perception about like how and like if she feels so unsafe, why isn't she doing more to not feel that way, or is she not able to? I don't know. But she was like, if Frank doesn't pick me up, I'm gonna go home. Like I was like, oh my god, trust the process,
I
sis.
do think
Process
she
time.
kind of had a point though, because if you think of who's left, if it comes down to Nathan having to pick between her and Brew, I think he picks Brew over her. And
Which
so
is
who
fine.
not necessarily, because then like is I don't know if Rachel is the beats out anybody, like if it's anybody else choosing besides Yuling, I don't think that Rachel has a precedent over anybody else. Because like if it's Nathan, I think he picks Brew over Rachel. If it's Alyssa, I think she picks Brew over Rachel. And I think that who else could be left? That would really be it.
But
Like,
no, when I said that's fine, I meant like more of like no, that's like true, like what you're saying. Like
oh yeah,
yeah,
okay. I was
like
like,
I no, like I do agree with that. I think the thing is that my point is like, how do you feel so unsafe? Like to me, that means that this should be a signal for you to do more because she
mm-hmm,
must have felt that way for a while. You can't just suddenly feel like obviously you can feel a sense of urgency when
mm-hmm.
there's a safety chain, but realistically, you've had the entire day or you've had the entire few days to try to figure out what works best for you, what relationships you need, and the fact that you feel so unsafe is very concerning about your game overall.
She really hasn't had the opportunity to like prove trust to anyone though. This is her first ratings and blocking. So you know what I mean? Like she hasn't been in an influencer position. She hasn't, like, no feet have really been held to the fire with Rachel in terms of like having to prove, and she hasn't gotten to prove her trust. Like I think she's done a lot to be like, hey, look, I'm gonna give you information. This is what I think about Mama Carol or whatever. But like what she does next, in my opinion, in the safety chain actually is probably her biggest game move yet, because she saves Nathan and she does solidify that conversation that they had of like, let's look out for each other. I
Yeah,
just don't
for
think that
sure.
she's really had an opportunity yet to either prove trust or like have it be proven to her that others trust her. Like besides that conversation with Yuling and Frank, and so like Yuling choosing her shows that. I think like it this activity might have solidified things for her more so than in the actual moment. But I do understand, like I get your point as well of like, oh shit, if there's this many people left and I'm not feeling comfortable, and this means I need to go and make sure that these people I don't feel comfortable with right now become comfortable with me over the next couple of days before any other decisions have to be made.
Yeah, and also like it just seems like a lot of the conversations we've seen with Rachel have been because people have added her into the conversations
Mm-hmm.
and not because she's initiated it. So
That's
to me,
true.
it's like very concerning that she feels so like the way she does, which is like not wrong for her to feel that way, but it's like it's concerning because it's
Mm-hmm.
like, girl, like for you to feel that way, like something's not doing well in your game. That's like a blind spot that you need to fix.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm saying that because I want her. I like her. I'm rooting for
Yeah,
her.
you want her to
So
be
it's like
around.
it's concerning. Like I'm like, girl, wake up. This is a wake up call. You need that. You need to feel comfortable with almost everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what she did with Nathan, and like honestly, I don't see her giving the thing to anyone else at that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
But also, it's like Nathan don't know that. He don't know her
Mm-hmm.
relationships. So giving it to Nathan is like really good, I guess. And it also shows that a lot of people are lacking relationships with Rachel that they also need to work on
Mm-hmm.
because it takes two to tango. So
Mm-hmm.
while I'm on Rachel about it, like obviously the fact that she doesn't give it to Alyssa, Carol, or Brew just shows that you're also lacking a blind spot, which is Rachel.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a player and she's here to play, so don't count her out.
Can't say it any better than that. So Nathan, I think it was expected that Rachel would give it to Nathan based off of what we saw in their conversation earlier. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
think it was a surprise that Nathan chose Brew over,
Snooze.
yeah, Alyssa or Mama Carol, because those seem to be two people that Nathan is like out on anyway. So
True.
now the episode ends with we do not see who Brew chooses, because whoever Brew chooses is safe. It means the other person goes home. So we are either losing Mama Carol or Alyssa after this.
We may be losing either Mama Carol or Alyssa, but I'm definitely winning because I'm ecstatic that one of them is going. I'm not rooting for both of them, to be honest. Brew could have also left, and I would have been at peace
Mhm.
because they've given me nothing personally. And like for me to be like, "Ugh, I want them to stay."
Mhm.
I'm curious because I want your thoughts on who Brew's gonna save.
I was
Who do
just
you
gonna
think?
ask you the same thing. All right.
We see each other. We're on the same wavelength. Our vibes are just immaculate today.
My gut reaction here is that he saves Mama Carol.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that it's going to be a tough decision for him. I don't think he wants to lose Alyssa, but he has been very much on the like, Mama Carol's my number one. And so, unless Brew has some revelation that um, having Alyssa there is better for him than having Mama Carol, which could happen because like Mama Carol in a way is like an island where Alyssa does have like the
Mm-hmm.
Ewing collection or whatever. Like he could come to that. I don't know if there's like a right or wrong answer for him, to be honest. Like I think that no matter what he does, it weakens his game and it hurts him the most out of anybody there.
Yeah, I first of all, as we're saying, all three should have left. Yeah, we're on the same page, bestie. I know that's right. No, yeah, I honestly at the end of the episode, I was like, oh, he's saving Alyssa. Like at the end of it, but
Mm-hmm.
after sitting here and having the conversation with you and just going through everything, I'm like, oh no, he should be saving Mama Carol because he's put too much stock in her.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't see him saving Alyssa. The conversation about that we talked about the fact that Brew and Mama Kara had a conversation is probably culminating to the fact that he's gonna save her. They've always been talking. We
Mm-hmm.
also saw Brew defend Mama Carol in front of Rachel. It just feels like if he puts all that work in, and for him not to save her, would just be like again, a lapse in his strategy, but I don't put it past him,
Mhm.
to be honest. Sorry.
Yeah.
I know that he's in the throuple with Alyssa for sure. And there was kind of a conversation about double dating and Alyssa with Bruce. So there could be that situation, which, ew.
Uh huh.
But overall, I do think that Alyssa, if Alyssa stays, Brew is the next to go. If he saves Mama Carol's next to go, which
Yeah.
is better for his game because that gives him time, and that time is what he needs to fix the relationships with other people that he needs to fix it with, notably Rachel, Frank,
Mhm.
other people. So I think whatever he decides will actually tell a lot about where he's gonna stand in the game next. But if I were him, I would look at the fact that he was chosen, one of the last few chosen, and he is one of. He's also seen Rachel advocate for Mama Carol's departure,
Mhm.
so he should know if 1 plus 1 equals 2. He should know that if he saves Mama Carol, he's not next. He has one more day or one more,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Blocking.
week
Yeah.
or like a chance, one more chance to save himself and put himself in a better position. And
Mhm.
that's all you really need. You kind of have Nathan, work more in a relationship with Nathan. He's kind of had in conversations with Everson and Imani with Rachel. So that's a gateway as well, making that a group or whatnot. He has a lot of places he can go. Do I trust his instincts to follow that? Not really, but we'll see. So yes, I was so sad that they cut it, the cliffhanger there. I was like, ugh, we have to wait another week. But
Mhm.
it's seemingly, if you're listening to this live, there's like a day left,
Yeah.
kind of.
Like a day and a
So
half, somewhere around there.
yeah, so we just have to hold out just one more, just a little bit more time, and we'll get the answer to our questions.
And that is where it ends. That's where we're at. So I think we have 2 more weeks worth of episodes. Next week we've got episodes 9, 10, 11, 12, which means next weekend we will be back covering episodes 9 and 10, and then 11 and 12 together. Who knows what is to come? I just know that I am very excited. I'm enjoying this season, that's for
Same.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, with that being said, Josiane, let's round this out. We've been talking for about 2 hours, and I have a whole
Other
other
night planned.
podcast. In addition, it's 5 episodes of television that we are covering tonight. I
Oh
literally have
my god.
9.5 pages of notes. So go ahead, Josiane. Tell them where they can find you and what you're doing on the internet these days.
Y'all can follow me on Instagram and Twitter with the at below, which is Josiane XNM, JOSANEXNM. Obviously, what I do on the internet is podcast, sleep, eat, breathe podcast. So when I'm not podcasting for the circle, I am podcasting for Big Brother Canada. If you haven't seen any of our videos or just didn't see the season and kind of want to watch with the podcast, tune on in to our show. We had some great speakers, obviously, Isaiah, Katie, and Lance. We have some interviews with some exit. The final four, actually all of the final five. We've
Mhm.
interviews with all of them, which is pretty cool if I do say so myself. Maybe even a silent podcast first. So tune into that and then keep a lookout for Just So Damn Messy, new podcast on Silent Podcasts, where we talk about all things mess, silent, like obviously Selling Sunset, Ultimatum, even a future episode of Temptation Island. So keep an eye out on that. But that's it for me. Kari, tell us where we can find you.
You can find me Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Venmo. K-
Venmo.
Venmo KGD26. Send the money, Netflix. I'm waiting on it. Um,
Yeah.
and I am. Oh, pray for Carrie. That's funny. Uh, I'm podcasting like every day this week. Not joking. So we got the
Literally.
we got the home and home double header tonight, right? So we just finished the circle. Our circle podcasts are going to pick up mostly on the weekends for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And then I am finally recording about Real Housewives on the Cool Water Show with Katie. We had to skip a week because I died, but I'm back. We have a lot to talk about, so much
Come
to
on,
talk about.
Resurrection.
Yep, it was my Easter last week. And then um, uh, tomorrow I am going to be talking the challenge with some silent podcasters. We'll see who's there, but there's a chance you might see Josiane again. We'll see. So we're talking episodes 1 and 2 of the challenge on Tuesday, and then from here on out, we're going to be podcasting that on Thursday nights because it comes on a Wednesday. But so does the Real World, and there's Survivor, and there's just a lot. So we're going to do our Real World podcast on Wednesday nights. We're going to do the challenge on Thursdays. So you can basically catch me doing a ton of stuff right now. I'm just watching TV and then talking about it. So yeah, definitely all over our silent podcast at the moment. And you want to know where you can see all that? It's these 3 places. You can see us on YouTube, Silent Podcast. You can see us on Twitch, Silent Podcast. You can follow us at silent_podcast on Twitter, where we tweet out all the stuff we're doing. So you could watch us live on Twitter if you wanted to. We also post when the stuff goes up on all of our podcast platforms. So Apple, Spotify, wherever else you listen to your podcast. So definitely tune in because looking at those stats is like my favorite thing to do. So
don't forget to like, comment, and share our podcast. Goodness gracious. If you like us, if you like especially Kari, because she carries literally almost every single show, give it a like. I mean, come on. That's all you need. Give us 5 stars, even.
Yes, rate, review, put us so that other people are seeing us because that's the next goal is to grow. So we want more people listening. We want more people viewing. We just got a whole slew of people applying to join us. So we're looking to expand the content we're providing you as well. So we are definitely doing things over here for you at Silent Podcast. We're anything but silent. So yeah, definitely tune in to all the stuff we got going on. Esme has a question for me. Hit me, Esme. It better be quick because some of us are over here
dying,
needing to use a certain room in the house that has a toilet.
Oh.
Come on, Esme, hit me.
You got. We're gonna give you a countdown. Okay.
Are you ready? Oh my gosh, I should have known. So
are you ready to skate? What?
So back in the day, we're both clicking it, Josie.
Oh my bad.
It's fine. I was a guest on a podcast with Esme about the Disney Channel original movie Brink, which is about rollerblading, yes. And it's like, did you wake up and say you want to skate today? And so that was the question. Thank you, Esme, for that throwback. I appreciate it. I love it. It's such a good movie. But all right, we are out until next week. We hope you enjoy watching the episodes, and then make sure you watch the next 4 so you can follow along with our podcast next weekend. But
maybe we'll even live tweet. Who knows?
Oh, maybe that can be a you thing on that one. I'll hand that over to you.
I do wake up at 7:30, but I'll do it for the viewers.
I just don't know when I'm gonna watch them yet, so I don't want to say I'm live tweeting at this time when but I haven't planned that far ahead on when I'm watching 4 hours of television. So just keep an eye out for it. We'll try.
Actually, I think I could because I'm traveling.
Oh, okay. All right.
We'll see.
Follow us on Twitter, silent_podcast. Until then, see ya.
Bye.